the Legal Corner podcast series. Welcome to today's episode of The Legal Corner, a podcast which covers a variety of legal issues to keep you informed. Hosted by attorney at law Colin Dinoon and communications specialist Leonardo Torres.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Legal Corner podcast series. I am your host, Colin Dinoon, attorney at law. And my co-host, Mr. Leonardo Torres, is absent today because of work commitments. In fact, Leonardo's availability will be reduced for the remainder of the season, but I know that he will join us when he is able to do so. I would like to extend condolences to Leonardo on the passing of a close family member of his, and my thoughts and my prayers go out to him and his family during this difficult time. Now, in today's episode, we'll be looking at the topic of consumer rights. Now, we all make purchases as we go through our daily lives, and many times we enter into contracts for sale without realizing the full import of them. Oftentimes, it is only when we encounter a problem that we realize the need to be informed of our rights as consumers. Joining us on the show today to provide some perspective on this topic is Ms. Letitia Andrews, attorney at law. So Letitia Andrews is a 26-year-old singer and lover of the performing arts with a passion for legal development and the mentoring of the Caribbean youth. From an active student at Bishop Anstey High School East, Letitia started to understand the power of her voice and her ability to advocate on behalf of those who could not do that for themselves. While completing her Bachelor of Laws at the University of the West Indies Cable campus, she began to serve in organizations such as the Rotaract Club of UWI Cable, where she would have been a voice for others, serving the community of Barbados. Fast forwarding to Hugh Wooding Law School, these skills were developed and shaped, resulting in her completing her legal education certificate and being called to the bar to practice in Trinidad and Tobago in 2020. In 2021, Letitia opened her own private practice where she serves her clients in areas such as conveyancing, family law, probate, and civil law. Within the past 2 years, Letitia has found herself serving in spaces to educate, uplift, and create conversations among the youth on politics, education, spiritual, and personal development. She projects that within the next 2 years, she will continue to fulfill her passion as an advocate and her vision to motivate the younger generation of Trinidad and Tobago and by extension, the Caribbean. Good day to you, Letitia, and welcome to the Legal Corner.
Good day, Colin. It is so good to be here. It's truly an honor to be here this afternoon.
Love you. I'm so happy that you could join us. Letitia, we're going to jump right into it because we have this very important topic to talk about. So I want you to talk to us a bit about the rights of consumers when purchasing items from a retail establishment.
Okay. So at first, I want to give a background as to where these rights even originated from. Firstly, John F. Kennedy in 1962, he first presented 4 rights of a consumer, and that was the right to safety, the right to be informed, the right to choose, and the right to be heard. This, after a few years, this amounted or it extended to 8 basic rights of the consumer. And this is what we have now, even in our legislation. So we have the right to basic needs, the right to information, the right to safety, the right to choose, the right to be heard, the right to redress, the right to education, and the right to a healthy environment. This was also placed in our revised Treaty of Shabarama, even Article 184 as well as to 186. And this is where now you see the regional legislation also picking up on the rights of the rights of the consumer in that sense. And let me break it down for you, Colin. So we have, yes, we have the right to basic needs. But as a consumer, you also have the right to information. So when you walk into a store, you look at the description. Let's say you're going to buy a shoe. You would see size 11, and that is all you may see. You may see the name of the shoe, and that's it. You still have the right to speak to a sales clerk or a sales representative and ask them, hey, is this is there any kid that like if I wear it and rain falls and I slip, is there any grip on the bottom of the shoe? You could ask those in that form of information, and that is really because you have the right to do so. If it is that let's say the new iPhone 14 that everybody is talking about now, you see it and you want to buy it, and you're in the States and you want to buy it. Your first question you want to know is, can it work in Trinidad? And they're not even presenting that answer to you right then and there. But you can ask them, say, hey, my country, we have a SIM, and therefore, can it be used in Trinidad? You have the right to ask those questions. You even have the right to choose. As a consumer, when you walk into the store, a sales clerk should not force you to buy an item. It is your decision. So after you have received information, it is still in your garden for you to say, do I really want to spend $100 on this product? Or do I want to go to another store and see what else they offer? You have that right. And you also have the right to education. And this one, Colin, I find is very important because a lot of consumers, and even in my research, I realized a lot of persons in Trinidad are not aware of their rights as a consumer. So because we are not educated enough as to what are really our rights as a consumer, you see a lot of persons not even fighting for their rights or demanding certain things. So in this case, demanding for a refund, demanding to have the product exchange because they're not aware if they can do so. And then if they want to do so, they're not even aware of the process. You also have the right to redress. And in Trinidad and Tobago, we have that organization, which is the Consumer Affairs Division, where if you have an issue, where you went into a store, you were unable to get a refund, or you had a complaint, this is the place you go to where you could file a complaint, send in a letter, give them details of your situation, and then they will get back to you. So these rights, Colin, actually places some sort of importance into the hand of the consumer. When a consumer walks into a store, they must be aware of these rights and must be able to utilize them to the best of their ability. And one of the main important ones, I think, is the right to information. I must be able to ask, even if I have, sometimes you have this large description underneath a product, you could still even ask questions after that because you have the right to do so. Yeah.
Now, does it make a difference whether someone is purchasing from a traditional brick and mortar store or as opposed to online?
In answering this question, even COVID really presented that time for us to get into the digital world of things. Many times we did things traditional, and you saw a lot of persons. We did Zoom sessions, we had Zoom class, we had all of those things. When it comes to shopping, however, we realize that shopping online is becoming a regular day-life thing. Sometimes it used to be that you saw certain people shopping. Now everybody wants to shop and purchase things online. What it is now in Trinidad or even in the region, and this is my opinion, is that the region, a lot of the legislations are playing catch up when it comes to certain developments in the digital world. And that is because, let's say you and I, Colin, we're trying to do something online today. Literally tomorrow, we would be able to do it. It is forever evolving. And therefore, the legislation is literally running behind it to create various legislation that would still protect the consumer. However, in Trinidad, and as I was saying previously, with the revised Treaty of Shagaraman, Articles 184 to 186, Trinidad and Tobago and even other Caribbean countries have implemented what was stated there, which was basically the extended version of the eight basic rights of a consumer, and they have created certain legislation. So to answer this question, I looked at the Electronic Transactions Act, and Section 55 basically highlights that a person using electronic means to sell goods or services, they have to do a little extra, right, compared to what we do in a store. And the extra is they must give their legal name of the person, its principal geographic address, and electronic means of contact or telephone number from easy communication and service of legal process. It goes further to state that they must provide accurate and accessible information describing the goods or services offered, sufficient to enable consumers to make an informed decision about the proposed transaction and to maintain an adequate record of information. And you could see, Colin, as I have read that from the Electronic Transaction Act, it is still highlighting the fundamental rights of a consumer, which is the right to information. However, because it is online, you have lacked the ability to touch the product. All you are really seeing is a video or a picture. So now that person who's the seller has to provide extra information because you are also placing this consumer is going to place their trust in you that when they send their money via online banking or via a particular site, that you would also fulfill your side and you are actually sending me exactly what I've purchased. So that is really the difference when it comes to um, buying online or shopping online compared to shopping in the store. Because when you shop online, I believe in looking at these sections, the rules are a little more stringent than what we would do when we go into the store. And that's really because there's a level of trust now that has to be developed between the seller and the consumer.
Okay, well, that is really interesting in terms of there being a requirement for even more information to be provided
Yeah.
when someone is selling an item or items online.
Yeah.
Now, I want us to talk a bit about the contract for sale of goods and what sort of remedies would be available if such a contract is breached.
Yeah. So when we think about contract and for anyone who is listening and may not even know what is the basis of a contract, there has to be some sort of acceptance and offer, acceptance and consideration. And then you go further to even list out the terms. There are terms and conditions that would be listed out in that contract. And it is actually the Sale of Goods Act in Trinidad and Tobago that lay out remedies of the buyer and also remedies of the seller. But because today we are dealing with consumer rights, I am not, choosing my side here, but we are dealing with consumer rights. So I would look at the remedies of the buyer. And one of them is really that they may have an action against the seller, one for non-delivery. And this is found in Section 51. You can look at Section 52, Section 53, and 54. So you could have an action for damages for non-delivery. So that is when you have already paid for your service, and then it's not even delivered to your door, it's not delivered to your home, you have not received the service, a specific time has passed. You have that right to claim for damages. And the damages is based on naturally resulting in the ordinary course of events. So you must take that into consideration. There's also the breach of warranty. And I love this one just because, you go into a store. So I remember going into Pennywise, right? And I bought a hair dryer. And when I bought the hair dryer, they told me I have 1 year warranty. At that point in time, I was not a law student, but you're always hearing about warranty, and nobody is really explaining to you the power of what it means to have a warranty. And I'm using this hairdryer and I had 1 year warranty. Literally 6 months into using the hairdryer stopped working. But because I didn't understand what it meant for me to have a 1 year warranty, I proceeded to just buy another hairdryer. I didn't even keep the receipt for the hairdryer. So it made no sense going back. I said, well, I'm bringing back the hairdryer, it stopped working. So in this case, with a breach of warranty, this section, which is really section 53, it says where there is a breach of warranty by the seller or where the buyer elects or is compelled to treat any breach of a condition on the part of the seller as a breach of warranty, the buyer is not by reason only of such breach of warranty entitled to reject the goods, but he may set up against the seller a reduction. They use a big word here, extinction of the price or reduction of the price, or they may also go for damages. What this section is really saying is it may not amount to the buyer saying, you know what, I don't want the product, that's it. But it may result to you at least getting a reduced price or for you claiming damages. And what it says here is that breach of warranty not only for the timeline, as I explained from the Pennywise story, but also there are certain conditions that may be laid out in a contract. And the same way how I may have obligations as a consumer, the seller has obligations as well. So when those obligations are breached, I now reserve the right to then claim for damages or to say, here's what, because this is what you have done, let me get a discounted price. This is the rights that you have under that section. So with all of that, those are some of the remedies that you have. You could even, in this case, if we are dealing with sale of goods, let's say for non-perishable items, which would be like, as I use the hair dryer. Let's use the number one thing today is the hair dryer. So we're using the hair dryer. Let's say I bought the hair dryer from you, Colin, right? And with that hair dryer, there is an issue with the hair dryer, and I want my money back. That is also a form of a remedy because the hair dryer for that specific use, it's not working. And I got it, and as I try to work it, it's not working. I communicate with you and I say, here, what? I don't want the hair dryer again. This is my first day. I try to plug it in. It's not working. Here's what? Just get me my money, and that's that. That is the simple thing that would happen. That is the simple remedy. However, if it is something as major as a stove, major as a fridge, these are some of the things that you could utilize. Even purchasing a car, these are some of the remedies that you could utilize to be protected.
Okay, excellent. I just want to clarify, we are not telling people not to shop at Pennywise, right? You was just giving an example about what happened with the hair dryer, right?
Yes.
So at this point in time, we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. So before the break, we were just having a discussion in terms of some of the remedies that are available for the breach of a contract of sale. And I believe that segues nicely into my next question, which is in what circumstances can a consumer demand a refund?
Yeah. So this is where you used to see those signs on certain businesses, no refund or no refund policy. And I was reading up on it, and there were a lot of talk within, let's say, 2019 to 2020 in Trinidad and Tobago about this being illegal. And it's really because as a consumer, you have that right for redress. So you have that right to say, hey, something is wrong with this product that I purchased on this particular date. And therefore, let's start to talk some business now. It's either I get my money back, I get a better product, something needs to be done to ensure that the service that I was really entering into your business to receive, that I could still get that service. In this case, in section 16 of the Sale of Goods Act, they said that the goods must be of merchantable quality. And you may ask, Letitia, what does that mean? And it's pretty simple. It means that it must be fit for the purpose for which it was purchased. And thinking about that section, I said, okay, if I purchase a car, I'm really purchasing a car to drive it from point A to point B. I'm not purchasing a car to use it as an office or as a classroom. So don't sell me a car and then tell me it has no engine inside. And I'm only going to figure that out after I purchase it. Right? So that is really what it means. If I purchase something, if I'm purchasing a hair dryer, I'm purchasing the hair dryer to really use as a hair dryer. I'm not going to purchase it to use it as a phone. So if I purchase an item and it's not in that state where I could use it for its purpose, then that is the ground for where a consumer can say, hey, something is wrong with this product. I'm unable to use it for what it was, what you described to me as a sales clerk or what your business advertised to me. It cannot be used that way, and therefore I would want a refund. So that is one of the main grounds in which a consumer can demand a refund. There's also, as I previously spoke about, the right to reject. But the right to reject goods, there's a blurred line, and this is where now the legislation and the various cases come into play. And this is where we become a little more legal for those who are listening, where when we look at the right to reject goods, the court is basically saying that they deal with it on a case-by-case basis. So I can't just come and say, hey, I don't want the good anymore. For what reason? For what reason is it that you do not want the good? And that is what the section is also dealing with. Even in section 35, they says that where the goods are delivered and he didn't have that ability to examine it. So let's say we see something, and to be very honest, sorry to cut my answer short here, Colin. Within this COVID-19 period, we have seen a lot of businesses in Trinidad moving from being, as we say, that traditional store. Now they're moving to their cars, they're moving into Instagram. So you see in various ads where people say just DM, send what you want, send your whatever you like, your size, whatever, and we would get it to you. In those cases, Section 35 is saying that that person would reserve the right to even reject the good on the ground that they were unable to examine the good before purchasing it. And that is because you're viewing it from a phone, you're viewing it from your laptop. So I purchased it, but now upon examining it, I realized it is not what you have presented to me online. And therefore I could seek to say, here what? I don't want this anymore. I would like to receive my down payment if you did a down payment, or I'd like to receive my full payment and I would purchase something else or purchase something else elsewhere. These are some of the circumstances where you can demand a refund. And it's, we would say it's pretty simple, but as I continue to read up on it, I was being educated because of the fact that these things are not always taught to you. They are not always advertised on TV, but it's something that is very important as we continue to shift from that traditional store to even online shopping. That consumer must be aware of the grounds in which they could demand a full refund.
For sure. I like that part where you spoke about even online purchases like Instagram and so on, and where, because sometimes it may not be what you wanted. You may not pay your money, and then when you see the product, you realize that this is not what I thought I was purchasing. It's not of the right quality and so on. And it's good to know that in those cases, people can ask back for their money. It's good to know in those cases that people can request and demand a refund. But Looking at it on the other side now, are there circumstances in which a refund can be refused?
And the answer is yes. So I know we really not that bad of us as Trinis, okay? So I'm not going to discriminate. But I remember being in a store and this lady came to return an item, and you could very well look at the item and see that it was used to the utmost level possible. And then she decided to deliver it to the business. And in those cases, you cannot expect a refund, especially when you have tampered with the product to the point where it cannot be used. So, for example, and this is where now you as a consumer, especially, I'm not going to use my hair dryer to say that it's such a $1 million hair dryer, but even with a hair dryer, there are instructions in that box that would let you know don't put it near certain things. It could damage something. Don't put it next to liquid, etc. So there was actually a time that I purchased a hair dryer from Pennywise again, but this time it was looking really good. It was looking really good. And I put it in my drawer, and by mistake, I had a bottle of hair oil in that drawer, and it was a little bit open. So when I took it out the next time to use it, nothing is working. And when I felt all over the hair dryer, it is drenched in oil. I cannot go to Pennywise and ask for a refund if I myself have damaged the product. And this is where now, as much as we have consumer rights, we cannot take for granted the seller, and we cannot take for granted the services that they are providing. So while you may have a ground of redress and a ground and a demand for a refund, if you yourself have tampered with the product to the point where it cannot be used, you cannot expect to get a refund. It is just that simple. As well as, and this is where too we have to be careful when it has to pass the warranty period. So let's say with the same hair dryer, if after the year I had the hair dryer wasn't working and I had a year long warranty, I cannot then go after the year warranty and say that I want a refund because I've used that product for a year. And in highlighting that, well, you could tell now that I like to tell stories. So even when I was starting my legal practice and I was opening up my office, I purchased this diffuser from Superfan. And I love this diffuser, it's giving nice scents and stuff. And literally within like the 10th day, it stopped working and it started to leak from the bottom. But I had a 30-day warranty. So I went back one time, gave them the receipt, and then they gave me something different that I could use. That day, because it fell within that warranty period. But if afterwards, I went and I said, hey, after 30 days, let's say by the 32nd day, I am in the store and I want a refund or I want to return the item or exchange the item, that is where now you get a little difficulty because that they have already given you that grace period to come. After that, it is your responsibility. If it's not working, it's just not working, right? So that is where now we have to deal with that. There's also the point where you cannot just expect to seek redress if it is that you just don't like the item. And as Trinis, sometimes we do it like that. You just don't like the item, you don't want back your money, that kind of thing. But the same way in which we have that consumer right, we have the rights of the seller. You had that opportunity to examine the product. You realized that it was to the merchantable quality. It was fit for the use in which you purchased it. Now you get it, you don't like that it's pink. But you told the seller that you wanted it to be pink. Those certain grounds is what creates that gray area where you seeking to have a refund may be refused. And then the other one, last point would be when you use the product for a different purpose as to what it was intended to do. You can't then seek redress. You can't seek for a request a refund because you are using it differently from what it was really supposed to be used for. And a perfect example of that would be using those Pyrex bowls that are used for the oven to bake, and you put that on the stove to fry egg, and you want a refund. You can't expect that. It would very well break when you put it there. So you can't expect a refund. You know that a Pyrex, and what it is here, Colin, is the importance of being educated as a consumer. When you purchase a product, yes, you may be given information. You may also utilize your right for extra information. You made your decision to purchase it. But within those products, there are various documents that sometimes we just take out and put in the bin and we start using the product. But it's very important for us to read it because then we may be using the product for something else, and that is not what it's supposed to be used for. So those are really the simple grounds in which a refund can really be refused, or let's say for a lack of a better term, where you can't even seek redress or you're not entitled for redress.
Excellent. I want us to talk a bit about some of the practicalities when it comes to returning an item, right? So tell us a bit about what would be required. Is it that someone would need to hold on to the receipt, the original packaging, and so on? Tell us a bit about that. If perhaps let's say it's an electronic item and one of the plastic bags may have been torn or the box may have been torn and so on. Give us a bit of a discussion whether or not that would hamper someone from being able to return an item.
Okay, so I really love that question because this is what occurs, let's say, every day in a business place, right? Somebody, and I remember purchasing, well, by now the listeners could tell that I love shopping, but I remember purchasing something in PLS. I purchased the shoes in PLS. And I purchased the shoes because, sometimes everybody is just taking out the shoe in the box, trying it on. I didn't realize that I got two different sizes in the box. So I went right away, like 2 days later, to exchange. What I needed on that particular day was the receipt. So sometimes it is very important, based on what you have purchased, to have the receipt. Let's say if it is like a simple product, something from Pennywise Superfarm, something that when you purchase it, you get in a small receipt. You take a picture of the receipt, especially if it is like an electronic device. Take a picture of the receipt because these receipts tend to fade. And it's understandable that as human beings, you're not going to keep a receipt forever. But at least within that week, you take a picture of the receipt so you have that on your phone and you also keep the original. As I move further now to, let's say, more complicated contracts. So you have a sale of a vehicle, you have a fridge, a stove, there may be a contract, or as we say, a bill of sale that you would have received from court or American store. You keep that with you. You don't just dispose of it and then expect them to be able to follow up. Because as the seller, they have to go into their database, cancel what was done, and be able to provide you now with a different bill showing, okay, you have returned the item and now we are giving back your money or we spending your money, etc. So that is something for you to take into consideration. Also, the fact that when you have made the decision to return an item, you have to stop using the item, right? It's just pretty plain. You have to stop using the item. You just can't be like, well, I'm going to return the item tomorrow, but let me just use the pot one more time and, cook a little meal for my family. Then when you do that, you see the screws by the handle coming off, and all those things can tamper or hinder you from even receiving a refund. Once you have realized that, hey, something is wrong with this product, I want to return the good, then you stop using it. you also notify the company. So I remember in the two instances where I had to return an item, I made sure I called the company. I called Superfarm, I called Payless beforehand and informed them this is what is going on. They gave me a time in which I could come. They said you have the receipt. And sometimes it's very important to call the company because they themselves may have specific things that they need from you. So instead of you picking up yourself and going to the company and not having these items and basically wasting a trip, you call them and you inform them and they would give you certain guidelines as to how they could go about the process. When you return it, or let's say you have difficulty in returning the goods, you make sure you try to speak to a manager or the owner. Because if it is that the sales clerk is telling you, listen, you cannot get a refund, etc., you make sure that you cover all the spaces. So you spoke to the boss. He himself said something that he cannot give you a refund. Then you know your next step is to, especially if it is a serious sale, let's say you have spent $10,000, $20,000 on a particular purchase. You make sure, okay, you cover all your spaces before you go to the consumer affairs division, where you could literally write a letter of complaint. And on that note, Colin, I forgot to highlight, I believe it is in one of these sections when it dealt with online purchases, where it says if it is that you have received the online purchase, hold on just a sec, Colin. It is with one of these sections where it said where you have received these purchases and when you have received it, it is not up to standard. You can also request, but this is what they said, and I forgot this section. Once I remember this section, I would say it. But in that section, the part that really stuck out to me is you can return it or notify the seller within 30 days, but you have to ensure that you have not received any material benefit. And that there, I was like, that is the gray area. And that is where now it's done on a case by case basis. So sometimes you may go in with the intention of returning a good or seeking a refund, and then you realize, okay, I cannot get a refund because of this. And that is all right. Sometimes it's literally within the fine print. And that is why I like this segment, because as a consumer, you need to know to read between the lines, literally. So yeah, so those are some of the things that you would have to keep in mind when returning certain goods to a business place.
Letitia, this has been a very interesting discussion. As we are about to bring the curtain down on today's interview, I would just like to give you one final opportunity. If there's anything that you would like the people of Trinidad and Tobago and even beyond to keep in mind as it relates to their rights as consumers.
Firstly, I would like to say that it is very important as a consumer to always be educated on your rights. When you do that, you hold more power as a consumer. And when I say power, not just for you to say, I want a refund, I want a refund now, but when you are educated as to your rights, then you know how to behave in certain situations or how to conduct yourself as a consumer in certain situations. And in closing, I would say to Colin that this is a topic that is always evolving, especially in Trinidad and Tobago. I believe it was in 2018 where they were highlighting that they needed to do certain improvements and amendments in the legislation as it relates to consumer rights because they are seeing that even online shopping and e-commerce are becoming things that a regular person would do. And therefore, as a regular person, I need to also be protected as a consumer. Certain businesses, especially during COVID 19, they switched their business completely, left the mall, and went straight to online. And therefore, at that point in time, it wasn't even COVID 19, but the government was seeing the importance of improving their legislation. So I only hope that within the coming years, we can see these improvements where the rights of the consumer continues to be something of importance, and that we can see that in all spectrums, those rights can be respected as well as upheld by all. Yes. And thank you very much, Colin. I think this segment is one of importance. And I truly enjoyed, having the ability to share and even play my role in educating Trinidad and Tobago, and by extension the Caribbean, on the importance of their consumer rights.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Letitia, for taking the time out from your busy schedule to be with us here today. And we look forward to having you on at another opportunity.
Thank you very much, Colin. It's truly a pleasure and a privilege to be here.
You are welcome. Now, this has brought us to the end of another episode of the Legal Corner podcast series. Remember to check us out on social media. On Facebook, we are the Legal Corner podcast series. On Instagram, we are at the Legal Corner podcast. We are also on Patreon if you're interested in supporting our work. If you enjoyed the show, I'd like to ask you to share it with your friends and family. Feel free to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. I'd also love it if you subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss any future episodes. Special thanks to the members of our promotional team who are helping us to get our message out. Bye for now, and God bless.
Thank you for listening to the Legal Corner podcast series. For more information, please visit us at our Facebook or Instagram pages, or send your comments to thelegalcornerpodcast@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you.